Jordanna Miller is in Israel, as always, with ABC News. Good morning.
Good morning. Unfortunately, we can't report on much progress in the U.S.-led talks to reach a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. Those talks are going on in Cairo yesterday, and the Israelis never showed up for the round. Sources here in Jerusalem say that Hamas never provided, among other issues, they didn't provide a list of the living hostages, the 40 that they would be willing to free in the first part of this 6-week ceasefire. And for the Israelis, this is particularly important because, in the last deal, in the last extension of the deal in November, Hamas offered up bodies at the end instead of hostages. So, Israel wants to know that if they're going to have 40 or 42 days of calm, that they don't want to wait on the edge of their seat every day to see that Hamas provides a hostage who's alive. They want to know ahead of time, and Hamas doesn't want to provide that list. So, we're at there's a new kind of obstacle now. Hamas also is still calling for, Israeli troops to withdraw completely from the Gaza Strip. That's not going to happen in the first phase of this deal. So there's still work to be done. I would say there's still some optimism. We have about a week before Ramadan starts. It starts on Sunday evening. Maybe we'll still get there, but certainly the optimism that was here a few days ago, as happens so often, it has now evaporated.
Well, it's horrible for the families waiting for any information on the hostages. It's hard to blame the Israelis for not showing up when the most basic part of the agreement for the meeting wasn't met.
Yeah, it appears. Yeah, I think we have to recognize, Israel has more or less agreed to this deal. It's Hamas who is kind of, the ball's in their court. The question is, do they really want a ceasefire? Do they want to, take a break in this war and possibly negotiate for it to end? Or do they want to go into Ramadan calling for regional violence? There's already one major Hamas leader who this morning in a speech said, I call on, everyone in the region, especially in Israel and the West Bank to rise up over Ramadan. It's already a period, the Muslim holy month is always a period of tensions and the chances of violence always spike then, and there's often more violence. So, where is Hamas right now? And I don't think anyone really knows, what they're going to do in the next week. So we're kind of in a limbo.
Can you shed some light on the meeting that's supposedly going to happen today between Kamala Harris in Washington with Benny Gantz, and Benny Gantz, part of Israel's wartime cabinet, but Netanyahu is upset about this. Right. It's odd to think of a cabinet member here who would, go rogue, as this appears to be. But this is someone who's always had issues with Netanyahu and vice versa, right?
Absolutely. This is a clear sign that the White House is frustrated with Netanyahu, that they don't have faith in him, that they're not clear he wants to, go for a ceasefire, or is he more interested in the Rafah operation and defeating Hamas while the hostages, they fend for themselves. General Benny Gantz, this is a really interesting development here that he's gone to the United States, even more than the Kamala Harris meeting. He's meeting with Blinken. He's meeting with Jake Sullivan. He's seen as the adult in the room by the Americans. He's a centrist. He used to be the defense minister. He used to lead the Israeli army. He is Netanyahu's, his most formidable enemy and rival. And it has to be said, only because of the failure of October 7th, Netanyahu was forced to bring him into the war cabinet. Otherwise, people would simply have not gone into the army to fight this war if it was only Netanyahu. Gantz is, squashing Netanyahu in all the polls. He'll be the next prime minister once there's an election. And it looks like the White House knows that if they've done their homework and they want to get to know Benny Gantz better and find out what's really happening on the inside. And it sounds like someone's going rogue, but if we look back, on Israeli-American ties, even during the very difficult Obama and Netanyahu years, the White House always had some generals who were coming to them and telling them what's really happening, like General Gabi Ashkenazi. So this is a common strategy by the White House also. So, and General Benny Gantz has nothing to lose. He's in a position of power, and he's critical to the war effort. And if he left, it would be a major blow to the war effort, and Netanyahu's government probably wouldn't survive. So this is a very important development, I think, for really both sides.
Yeah, and it does make Netanyahu look weaker here, and obviously I would assume that's the case at home as well.
Yes, I mean, I think only because of optics, we're not seeing the president meet General Benny Gantz. So it's Kamala Harris, it's Blinken and Jake Sullivan, but clearly the president's messages and questions are going to come through, Kamala Harris and the others. And one of those issues is going to be what the Israelis can do to get more aid into northern Gaza, and the very complicated issue of how to secure the delivery of aid, because Hamas has been largely defeated in northern Gaza. There's a lot of lawlessness. There's some pockets of resistance of Hamas fighters. There's some, local gangs and other militant groups there. And the international community has to figure out a way to secure the delivery of the aid, because it's becoming, as we saw last week with the attack on the convoy, it's becoming extremely dangerous and deadly. And all the while, people are on the brink of starvation. We cover, the reporters here on the ground, we're covering every twist and turn every day. We've known for weeks there weren't aid trucks getting to northern Gaza, right? But it doesn't make headlines. It's not as sexy, quote unquote. And then the convoy story happens, and now, of course, we're focused on, as the world should be, on northern Gaza and what's happening there. There's 300,000 people there who have, not to speak of even proper shelter. There's not food and water that's getting up there. And
the Med Global president will be on after 6:30 talking about the nightmare on the ground there. Yeah. Jordanna Miller, ABC News. It's great having firsthand accounts of this, and you do amazing work, and I hope it continues for a long time to come. Thank you. That's Jordanna Miller at ABC News. So, wow.
Wow is right. She's working on it every day. I just worry so much about her and the people in her community, but the hostages, the families. I mean, there's so many.
Well, and the innocent people in Gaza that have nothing to do with terrorism.
So many layers,
Awful.
And then you get to the part where you're like, what about the humanity?